Okay, the fourth brushstroke is adjectives out of order. Let's see if we can get that to work for us here. Um, Easiest way to think about adjectives out of order is to think about where do the adjectives normally occur in the sentence. Typical sentence, in the example, the smart kid in Janet's class always gets A's on tests. If you think about it, what is the adjective in the sentence, or the main adjective? The main adjective is smart, and that is modifying the subject, which is kid, also a noun. Subject's always a noun. And notice its location in the sentence. It's always in front of the word that it's modifying. And that's the typical location of an adjective in a sentence, is it's in front of the word it's modifying. And obviously there can be adjectives other places in the sentence, and they can modify other words other than subject, or other places other than subjects. But again, they're always in front of the noun that they modify. That's the typical construction of an adjective. So obviously, if we're talking about inverted adjectives or adjectives out of order, we're talking about adjectives that come after the noun. Now, if we change the sentence to the kid smart, or the kid, comma, smart in Janet's class always gets A's on tests, it sounds awkward. So it doesn't work as well with just one adjective. Usually it works with a string of adjectives. So let's look at this example here. The sneaky, sly, smart kid in Janet's class always gets A's. Well, in this case, we have a string of adjectives, three adjectives: sneaky, sly, and smart, and they're all modifying kid. So if we want to fix this sentence and make it sound better, first of all, we're going to move two of these adjectives after the noun that they modify. And what that does is, first of all, it improves the sentence because we no longer have three adjectives in a row. And as you start stacking your adjectives in a row, each additional adjective that you add loses its effectiveness. It's not as intense. So by moving them to after two of those adjectives to after the kid, what it does is it emphasizes or accentuates one or two of those adjectives. It also can add some extra meaning or infer certain things. So if you think about it, what two adjectives would be best to move to behind the noun that they modify? And obviously the noun that they're modifying is kid. So what two adjectives would you move if you were in my situation? Probably the best two to move would be sneaky and sly. Move them after kid. Now think about what effect that has on the sentence if we move sneaky and sly to after kid. Okay, so we have the smart kid, comma, sneaky and sly in Janet's class always gets A's. Now wait a minute. If we just read part of that sentence, and the part of that sentence that we read was the smart kid, what are we thinking? Before we've read any more of the sentence, we're thinking, okay, this kid is smart, right? He does whatever smart kids do. However, when we add sneaky and sly, now we're qualifying almost the why he's smart. There's something else in there other than just the typical, you're born with brains, right? There's something else. And we get the implication as we read on in the sentence that the A's that he gets are not necessarily because he studies hard, and obviously I'm using a he, but it could be a she, not because he's naturally intelligent, but because of some other factor. Obviously the implication is, even though it doesn't say it, he cheats or does things that are somewhat illicit. So, again, what happens here is the words are emphasized. Now, usually the words that have either negative connotation or positive connotation are the ones that are going to be emphasized. In this case, smart has a positive connotation to it, but when you add two words with negative connotation after it, those are the ones that end up having the emphasis. If smart were a neutral connotation where it just doesn't have a whole lot of feelings associated with it, it's just, like the tall kid, tall doesn't have any connotation to it, it's simply a fact, then definitely the words that have a connotation to them, like sneaky and sly, would be the ones that are emphasized if you move them after the verb, or after the noun, I'm sorry. So again, the word's connotation, their location, how you move that is going to affect the meaning. And again, it's all about the meaning, and really the bottom line is your purpose. Why are you moving those words? What are you trying to accomplish as a writer? In this case, we're trying to add some implication, some inference. We're trying to make the sentence sound better, and that's by moving those adjectives. Okay, so again, adjectives out of order are when you move usually usually one or more adjectives to after the noun. It helps you avoid the overloaded string of adjectives because in that way it loses its effectiveness. The other thing adjectives out of order do for you is they draw your focus. They act almost like a camera lens. Think about a movie that you watch. If you're watching a movie and the director decides to zoom in on a particular object, like if you've ever seen The Matrix, at one point the one character is sitting across from the other character and he asks them, which pill do you want to take, the blue pill or the red pill? And the director has the camera lens zoom in on the two hands. And what it does, it draws your attention. Well, that's easy to do with a camera lens, but how do you do that with a sentence? And the correct answer to that is with your punctuation and also with adjectives out of order. So look at this sentence here. If we're reading this sentence and it just said, the large red-eyed and angry bull moose charged the intruder, it wouldn't say as much as it does at the point that it is now. Think about it. If you have your camera lens focused on the bull moose and perhaps zoomed in enough so that you only get part of the animal, and then you're panning the camera across that moose, you're going to see that it's large. And that becomes our initial focus of our camera lens. And we get that it's a bull moose, okay. But then the camera lens zooms in on that he's red-eyed, which for the audience realizes that's alarming. And then we realize that he's angry. And finally, that lens zooms out and we see he's charging the intruder. So what happens is the author of this sentence was able to make the audience see what he wants them to see at the time that he wants them to see it. And that, again, is very similar to what you see in the cinema, where they can affect the mood of the audience by the way they craft their camera angles. And so, again, you could do that as an effective writer. So, let's look at this sentence here. Her icy blue, shifty eyes glared into the night. What would be the best way to improve this sentence? In this case, first thing we're going to do is we're going to find we see our three adjectives: icy, blue, shifty. Okay, obviously those are modifying what word? Yes, eyes. Obviously eyes is your noun. Well, if we're doing adjectives out of order, or inverted adjectives is another way of putting it, then what we're going to do is we're going to take two of these words and move them to where? Yes, after the eyes. Okay, so we're going to take two of these. Which two would be the best two to move to after eyes? The correct answer, in my opinion, would be to move icy and shifty. Now, you could do anything you want. Again, it depends on your purpose. But think about this. How does this change the sentence? If we move these two to after eyes, then what's going to happen is you're going to get a sentence that reads as follows. Her blue eyes, shifty and icy, glared into the night. Now think about this. If I started out with zoomed in with my camera lens zoomed in on her blue eyes, that's very bland. There's nothing too exciting about that. It doesn't have a whole lot of meaning because blue has a neutral connotation. There's nothing good or bad about it. But as we start to zoom in a little bit more and we notice that those eyes go along with, or maybe zoom out actually, that her eyes go along with a kind of an icy expression. And we start to notice that they're also shifting around. Then we get the connotation that they're not just typical blue eyes. They're attached to some personality traits. And when you associate, what personality traits do you associate with icy or blue? Well, icy would be cold, perhaps calculating. Shifty would be not too trusted or nervous. And so again, what these two words, by shifting them out of order, does is it adds more emphasis and a little more implication to characterize this person. Okay, so this concludes the portion on adjectives out of order. Again, for adjectives out of order, what we are looking for is a noun, and after the noun we're going to have our two adjectives. And you can have other words in there, but if you add another noun in there, it changes it from adjectives out of order. It changes it to a positives, and we learned that in the last video. So you can only have adjectives in here, and those adjectives are going to modify the noun in front. Now, with what we've been doing, we've had an adjective in front here. But even in the color of water, as we looked at our first sample, you'll notice that James McBride actually uses adjectives out of order, but he doesn't have an adjective in front of the noun to modify that noun. So that's another way of doing it. The key is the adjectives are out of the order that they normally would be in, or they are inverted.